Before you watch this video, please make sure that you have at the very least watched the video just before this called Writing Constraints and the Objective Function, because we've already done half of two of the problems that we're going to go through together in that video. So make sure that you have watched that video. Also make sure you watch the video on how to graph inequalities. It's all going to come together in this video. So this question should look super familiar to you because we've already done all of, or half of the work, and the half of the work that we did was to find the constraints and then of course to write the objective function. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to put it all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph these guys. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's graph these guys. X equals 0 is essentially what I'm going to graph, which is this guy right here. And remember, I'm not going to worry about shading yet. Y equals 0 is this guy right here. Again, not worrying about shading yet. X plus y equals 10. I'm just going to use the cover-up trick to find these 2 points, connect the dots with a nice straight line. And then my last one, y is greater than or equal to 2x, would look something like this. And right away I cringe just a little bit because it's so nice when I graph and things connect at a nice even point. But as I can see, this guy is probably going to be problematic for me when I move down the line. But that's okay, we'll get through it together. Just like we did before, let's go ahead and find some regions here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 different regions that could be shaded, but hopefully right away I can figure out, because x is greater than 0, that means x is positive. So if x is positive, I can't have 5 or 6 or 7. And if y is greater than or equal to 0, then y is positive, so it can't be 8. So right away I've put it in the first quadrant, which is fantastic. Down to 4 zones. Let's start with blue. Blue guy says above or below. Oops, above or below. Let's not use the slash, that gets crazy. Above or below. So choose a test point. Surprise, surprise, I'm choosing 0, 0 because I can. So I get 0 is less than or equal to 10, and that is in fact true. So 0, 0, which is to below the line or to the left, should be shaded, which means 1 and 2, which are above the line, can't be. So it's got to be 3 or 4. So let's look at the yellow line. The yellow line is, can't use 0, 0. So my second favorite point, as you've probably figured out, which is left or right, my second favorite point is to use the point 7, 0. So I'm going to use 0 and 7 for the yellow equation. That gives me 0 is greater than or equal to 14. That's false. So 7, 0, which is in region 3, shouldn't be shaded. So it can't be 3. It can't be below or to the right. It's got to be to the left. So it's got to be this region right here. So far, I've just put together things that we already know how to do. And now we have to talk about things we haven't done yet. The next step from here would be to find the corner points. And those corner points are going to end up being plugged into the function, which is our objective function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this figure. Let's choose red. This figure has 3 corner points. 2 of them super duper easy to find. X is 0, y is 0. That's this guy right here. This guy up here is the point 0, 10. This guy right here, not super easy to find. So I could take you through the math of how to find it. Typically what you're going to do is you're going to be able to just graph it and click on the graph, but let's just look at the math real quick. The math should look familiar to you because essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two guys, which is the two equations that cross right there, and I'm going to solve using substitution or elimination. So I'm going to take x plus y equals 10, and I'm going to take y equals 2x. So again, I've just turned them into equations instead of inequalities. So x plus 2x equals 10. 3x equals 10. X is 10/3. What's y? Y is 2 of those. 2 times 10/3, which is 20/3. So this is 3 1/3, if you'd prefer to have it as a mixed number, and this is 6 2/3, if you'd prefer a mixed number. So that's the other point, which isn't awesome, obviously, because now I've got to deal with crazy decimals, but this is 3 1/3 or 10/3, this is 6 2/3. So what am I going to do now? Now I'm going to take a look at plugging in 500 times 0, which is x, plus 250 times 0, which is y, to get a solution, or a z. We'll just put z up here. Z is 0, because 0 plus 0 is 0. Then I have 500 times 0 plus 250 times 10, 0, 10, which would be 250 times 10, or 2500. And then I've got 500 times 10/3, which is, 500 times 10/3, and I'm going to take 250 times 20/3. My first answer is 1666.66 repeating, and then 250 times 20/3 gives me the exact same thing, and so essentially what I have to the nearest dollar is 3333.33. I'm sorry, to the nearest cent. So, oops, I'm looking at money. I don't know why. This isn't money, this is calories. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to maximize calories burned. This is the maximum. So my answer, because again I'm trying to maximize calories burned, my answer would be that if Jeremy spent 3 1/3 hours running, which is 3 hours and 20 minutes, and 6 2/3 hours weightlifting, which is 6 hours and 40 minutes, he would burn 3,333 calories per week. Good job, Jeremy. So let's take a look at the other example that we worked on in our last video. Again, we've already come up with the objective function and all of the constraints. And as you can see, I've given you sort of a smaller graph this time. If I were to graph the first two, it essentially just takes away all of this and all of this, which is why I didn't worry too much about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and remind ourselves, we have a line here, we have a line here, it's shaded somewhere in the middle. That's what we know right now. So I'm not going to deal with these two guys anymore. Let's color code the rest of them as we normally do to make things easier to understand. 1, 2, and 3. So if I'm doing number 1, x plus y equals 20, again I'd use that cover up trick. Looks like my scale goes by 5, so I got a point here and a point here. Connect the dots. X is less than or equal to 24, so that's blue. So x is 24 is about right here. And so I'm going to draw a line right here. And last one, x is greater than or equal to y. And so that is basically the line x equals y, which goes just like this. So I already know it's nothing that it's not in the first quadrant. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different zones. And the easiest zone to check is the blue one, because the blue one says x is less than 24, so it can't be 4. Because those are easy because there's just one variable, so I don't have to do any math there. X is less than 24 means numbers less than 24, like 0 or 5 or 10, which is everything to the left, would be shaded. So it's 1, 2, 3, or 5 is what I'm dealing with. So let's check with 0, 0. On number 1, 0 plus 0 is greater than or equal to 20. 0 is greater than or equal to 20. This is false, which means for the green line, 0, 0 shouldn't be shaded, which means 1 and 2 are out. Has to be 3 or 5. So let's look at the purple line. It's got to be above or below the purple line. I can't use 0, 0. I can use 7, 0, which is what I usually use for my second one. So 7 for x, 0 for y. 7 is in fact greater than or equal to 0. That's true. So 7, 0 is obviously somewhere in here, which means 3 is the correct side because it's true. Can't be 5. So zone 3 is my zone. That's my solution. Let's find the corner points. This guy right here is a point, and I don't have to do any crazy math here. I know that this is the line x equals 24, and this is the line x equals y, so this must be the point 24, 24. Same thing right here. This is the point 24, 0. This guy is the point 20, 0. And this last point, if I were to graph better than I did, would actually be right here at this corner. This is why I always suggest using Desmos to help you. This point is at the point 10, 10. So I didn't have to do any crazy math to find any corner points. Those are my corner points. So again, you can create a table, but you don't have to. But the table would be the x and the y of the corner points, and then basically the value of the objective function. So I didn't leave myself a ton of room there. I need the point 10, 10. I need the point 20, 0. I need the point 24, 0. I need the point 24, 24. And remember, I'm trying to, this is cost, and so I'm trying to minimize the cost. So let's take a look. If I use 20x plus 15y, so 20 times x, which is 20 times 10, 15y, so 15 times 10, that gives me 350. Again, using 20 times x would be 20 times 20, or 400, plus 0 times y, that's $400. 20 times 24, which is 480, plus 0 times 15, so that would be $480 cost. And then 24x times 20, that's 480. 24 times 15 would be how much for part-time employees? 480 plus 360 is 840. And what's the least amount I've paid? 350. Just to point out, some people might say, well, I knew from the beginning it was going to be 1010, so I didn't check any of the rest of them. If you're doing a question for me on an assessment, I'm going to want to see all your work so that I know that you understand the process, so I would show everything. Obviously the last step, and I probably didn't do this on the last question, I apologize, but the last step would of course to be to write a sentence. So write it out. What did we find out? Our answer would be that the manager should employ 10 full-time employees and 10 part-time employees to spend a total of $350 per week, which is the minimum amount that he or she could spend. So this guy's brand new. We haven't looked at it before at all, so it could take a while, but I did want to give you one where we worked through everything from start to finish: constraints, objective function, graphing, corner points, solution, everything. So let's take a look. Jessie makes $35 per hour tutoring chemistry, $55 tutoring mathematics. So I'm going to say hours of chemistry is X, hours of mathematics is Y. Typically, when we're dealing with money like this, that's my objective function. So my objective function, Z, X, Y, is going to be 35X plus 55Y. Now I'm going to try to write my constraints. So let's take a look step by step. She can tutor at most 25 hours each week. So chemistry plus math less than or equal to 25. Must tutor at least math, which is Y, at least 5 hours per week. Y is greater than or equal to 5. She tutors math at least twice as much as she tutors chemistry. So she tutors math, Y, at least twice as much as she tutors chemistry, which means I'd have to take chemistry times 2 to make it equal to math. And it says at least twice as much, so that means math is more than twice chemistry. Other than that, we've just got our regular X is greater than or equal to 0, Y is greater than or equal to 0 that we always include because they're positives. And really the Y is greater than or equal to 0, not super important because I got this guy, but we'll just go with it. So these two at the bottom basically tell me that it's in the first quadrant. That's all they do. So I'm not really going to worry about graphing them because they're already solid black lines. Let's do the other ones. 1 and 2, whoops, different color, purple and blue. So green guy, X plus Y is less than or equal to 25. That one's easy to graph using that cover-up trick. And again, just wait to do the shading. 2, Y is greater than or equal to 5. So Y is this guy, greater than or equal to 5. Again, we're going to wait to do the shading. Last one, Y is greater than or equal to 2X. So that goes through at 0, uses a slope of 2, so up 2 over 1. Kind of like up 10 over 5, we get the idea. It's going to look like this. So here's my options. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I really don't have any of these guys down here because the purple one is Y is greater than or equal to 5, and where Y is greater than 5 is above this. So I'm not even going to bother with all of this crap down here at the bottom. So I'm only going to look at zones 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to start with my green equation and say, is it to the right / above? Hey, guess what? I'm going to use 0, 0. 0 plus 0 is less than or equal to 25. 0 is less than or equal to 25 is true. So 0, 0 would be shaded, which means 1 and 2 are on the wrong side of that line. It's got to be 3 or 4. Now let's take a look at blue. Blue, I can't use 0, 0, sadly. So guess what I'm going to use? I'm going to use 7, 0. 0 is less than or equal to 2 times 7. I would say less than. 0 is greater than or equal to 2 times 7. 0 greater than or equal to 14. Absolutely false. So this guy shouldn't be shaded. So 3 is on the wrong side of that line. We're looking at 4. So this is my region. I'm going to get rid of the 4. This is my region right here. Now I need to find those corner points. This guy's easy. This was 0, 25. This guy's easy. This was 0, 5. This guy, I don't know. This guy, I don't know. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of work. So I'm looking at where the line y equals 5 crosses the line y equals 2x. So that should be pretty easy, because I would say 5 equals 2x, because we're replacing y with 5. Oops, y equals 2x. So 2.5 must be x. So it's 2.5 comma 5. And the other one I'm looking for where blue and green intersect. X plus y equals 25 intersects with y equals 2x. So again, that one's probably going to get ugly. X plus y, instead of y we put in 2x equals 25. 3x equals 25. X is ugly yet again, 25 thirds. Not my favorite when I get decimals and fractions, but we just go with it. The other one then would be that together they have to add up to 25. So if I take 25 thirds, then I would need y to be 50 thirds, because that would be 75 thirds, or 25 total. So these are that's my last point, is 25 thirds, comma, 50 thirds. Usually I try to be nicer and give you nice points, but apparently I was in a mean mood when I made this question. So again, what am I going to do? I'm going to look at this guy. I'm going to plug in my points. And x is going to be my 0, 5. Sorry, x and y is 0, 5, 0, 25, 2.55, or 25 thirds, comma, 50 thirds. Use your calculators, it's fine. We're plugging them in to 35x plus 55y. And am I minimizing or maximizing? Well, this is Jessie and she's trying to make money, so we're going to maximize. So 0, 5 would be 35 times 0 plus 55 times 5, which is 275. So 275. Oh, dyslexia, 275. Next, 0 times 35 plus 25 times 55. That's 1375. We're making progress. Jessie's making some money. Now let's look at 2.5 comma 5. So 35 times 2.5 is 87.5. And 55 times 5 is 275. Wow, 275. If I add those together, I get 362.5. So far, it looks like tutor math only, because yay, math is awesome. And last one, 25 thirds. So in my calculator, you can just do 25 divided by 3 in parentheses, and then multiply it by 35. And that's 291.67 if I round to the nearest cent. And then 50 thirds times $55 per hour, which is 916.67. If I add those together, 291.67 added to my previous answer gives me 1208.34. 1208.34. I'm trying to maximize how much Jessie can make. This number is the biggest. So what's my final answer in sentence form? Jessie should not tutor chemistry at all and tutor math 25 hours per week to make $1,375 per week.